Hello, today we're going to discuss an application development model that is closely tied to the business application programming or in the business world. And in the business world, a graphical visual flow that managers or a lot of stakeholders can see in the eyes is a very important property of the program. Um, uh, Many of us have programmed in languages like Node.js or Java or in Python, C Sharp, whatever. But these programs have no business flow, or the business flow associated to these programs are from a bond paper uh, in pencils, and it is detached from the program. Well, in this tutorial here, the Business Process Management or BPM is a programming model that is 50% graphics or visual flow and 50% text-based programming. So the other half of this is visual programming. You can see flowcharts and diagrams and arrows, square boxes, and so on. And when you click in those boxes, you can see snippets of source codes and so on. All right, let us begin. Let us create a Hello World program using BPM or Business Process Programming. The underlying technologies involved here is SOAP or Simple Object Access Protocol, Java, the Java programming language, and XML, Extensible Markup Language. This trio plays a very important role in this in this microservice application. To repeat, SOAP, Java, and XML are the underlying technologies that is powering BPM. All right, let us begin to create a Hello World program that accepts a name, and the program will reply with a hello. In my window here, this is my application server, which is a WebSphere. This is a WebSphere process server. This is a WebSphere with add-ons to handle BPM. And this is my IDE, which my editor, where I will develop my program. The editor is bundled with the application server. So I don't know if you can use any other editor aside from this. Maybe you can, but there will be a lot of tweaks. So let us create a Hello World program now in a BPM way. Hello library. I will use eager parsing. Then I will create a module. Hello module. And it will be using that library. So we are now lead to the workspace, the assembly diagram. This is the very beginning of the graphical part of this programming model. As I repeat, this part of business programming is part graphics and part textual. So we drag a process entity into the workspace. This is our workspace. And maybe we can rename this to a hello component. Now that our component is there, let us create an interface of this component. Drag the mouse here and click the eye icon. Another way to do that is right click and add an interface. They are just doing the same thing. So let me add an interface, and I will name my interface as hello. So that is my interface name, hello, and it will be a new interface. And we have a namespace here if we choose to accept it to be that way, but we can change it like that and change it accordingly. That let us just accept the default. We can also opt to decide which folder our interface will be under. Let us, I just decided to be services. And by the way, under the hood, we have these folders have been generated under the file system. So, for example, if the services folder is not yet there, but when I click OK and OK, and this is the name of the interface, hello interface. And choose this to be in the library. And we examine the file system. We have the services directory created there. Now that our interface is created, it is still an empty interface. We create a function. And there are two kinds of function in the SOAP world. Request response function, which is a kind of request that expects a response, and a one-way function, which is fire and forget, that you just call a function and never expects a response. Let us just say a fire and forget function. So now let us name our function, say hello. It accepts an input and a string. But let us say that our function is a complex function that accepts a complex parameters, not just a string, but a family name and last name and surname. So create a new, change the param type to be a business object. The business object, or BO, is another term for just an XML. And hello BO, or hello business object. And now that we have defined a new type of business object, it is still an empty field. We add a name, um, first name, and last name. So there, we have defined a module and the interface and function with those interface and a parameter that is an XML that has two fields, first name and last name. Let us start to create the wirings, to create the coding now. Add, create SCA binding. SCA is a Java technology, an acronym for Service Component Architecture. It is just a set of Java programming model that uses HTTP SOAP to interconnect to each other's module. So they are basically, the modules are separated across TCP/IP HTTP connections. They are not very coupled together, but very decoupled in a microservice way using SOAP and XML technologies. So after creating this ECE binding, we generate an implementation. And this is now the beginning of the graphical part of the programming model. So this is the end and the beginning and the end, and we receive here. So imagine that this is where our server receives the input parameters of the XML. So We add a snippet there. And then we add an assign construct. So when we receive the XML params, let us try to print this, but let us create temporary variables. TMP, and the type is string. First name, and the type is string. And last name. So now, because we receive the XML params, we can assign them from the XML params to our temporary variable here. So we are getting the field from the business object and assigning it to our temporary variable there. So then we can access those temporary variables in our snippet. Now, this is the ASCII part of the programming. You can choose to continue to program visually, but let us try to program in ASCII mode now in Java. So if I click the snippet here, we have now a chance to code in Java. Hello, first name. We are now accessing our temporary variables. By the way, this is a snippet in Java, but you can actually exploit the full power of Java classes as well in the BPM world. All right. So let us, okay, this is it to build automatically, build all. If there are compilation errors, it will be shown in the problems tab. For example, let us illustrate. Say if I miss to put a closing parents, this is, and do a build all. In the problems tab, it will be shown that there was a problem and it will be shown here. So let us correct the compilation error in Java and build again. So now that now that no build errors, there are no build errors, our program is ready to be published to our application server. Just right click and add the newly created program as an artifact ready to be published. Now, I don't want things to happen automatically, so there. So now that our program is ready to be published, just do a right click and publish. So it will be sending our jar modules into the WebSphere process server, which is over here, a separate server that is whole purpose is just to run our new developed applications created here. Let us give it some time. There, and it is deployed. Now, the test output here is in the command line, so We will be doing a tail of the system out.log using this command. Okay, that was from the previous test run, by the way. Let us clean that. So as you can see, my system out log is 0 bytes. To make sure that it is clean, and do a tail again. So we are now doing a tail. Now, one of the features in BPM using the IBM Integration Designer is the ability to automatically test modules. Okay, if you right click here and do a test component, you will be presented with editor that is tailored to what your interfaces, how your interfaces was constructed. Our interfaces has a function that is a first name, say John Doe. So now I will click the play button to send to exercise this particular interface. So it takes a while for the first time, but it gets faster as in the succeeding testing. There. And so we see our hello world there. So all of this seems very complicated, but as soon as you did 3 times or 4 times, everything will be automatic. And it is a very integrated experience from, as you know, wiring, SOAP, XML, REST services can be a very involved task that involves a lot of conventions from namespacing and testing. But here, using IBM's Integration Designer, the development and the component testing is an integrated experience. That's all, folks. I hope you learned something today. Thanks. Bye.